Hey there, welcome to the Modern Leadership Podcast. I'm Tim Nolan. So, today's episode, I'm really excited to broach this one. We were discussing this in a session of the Highly Effective Managers program last week, and definitely something to explore further. And that's having a good relationship with your manager. And it's really interesting as I broach this with different groups, is that many times people will tell me they have a good relationship with their supervisor. Now, sometimes when I'm working with organizations, their supervisor could be in the group or they don't want anything getting back to them. So I understand those concerns. But I think there's always opportunities to have a better relationship. And so today's episode, I want to look at some of those things and give you some food for thought. And whether you lead people or not. But more importantly, if you lead people, you want to make sure that you have a good relationship because this helps to model the kind of relationship that you want to have with your employees. And it starts with the kind of relationship you have with your manager. So, a prior episode, we looked at leading by example, which is incomplete, also leading by example and using that to influence other people to engage in those behaviors. So this is a really good example for you as a leader to look at, okay, what does that relationship look like with my supervisor? And a really good thing, a really good way to start that conversation with yourself is to assess. Let's just look at a 5-point scale. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being you have a great relationship, and 1 would be very terrible. How would you rate the relationship with your supervisor? Take a moment, write that down, think about it. Maybe it's a 3, yeah, it's okay. Maybe it's a 5, they're really supportive. But I would even argue with some of the stuff we go over today, it could even be better. So you may think it's a 5, but let's see how some of the stuff we go over today and how that stacks up with your view of the relationship with your supervisor and how that could be improved. So a couple of things to look at. So number 1 is checking in. What are their expectations? And this may seem very basic, very obvious, but again, we're seeing research from Gallup that identifies more than 50% of the workforce feels that workplace expectations are unclear. So I would check in, just like, hey, Tim, just really want to make sure that I'm doing a great job. And when you get a moment, can you give me some of your main expectations? Just really want to make sure that I'm delivering on those or doing the best that I can. So that's a really good step. Even if you have a good relationship, to demonstrate to your manager that, hey, I want to make sure that I'm aware of your expectations and so that I can continually work towards trying to meet them. So you're not brown nosing, you're just trying to clarify the relationship. What are your expectations? And there may be 1 or 2 things on there that you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't aware that that was that important to you. And so they may have 3 things, they may have 7. I was working with a group a few months ago. This one particular manager, she had an entire page, small print, entire page. She must have had like 30 expectations. So, I mean, that's quite a lot. But again, if that's what they have, I would want to know. I would want to know. And if you don't have that, then you're only assuming what their expectations are. So again, I would check in, ask them, and really try to just gently push them to give you those expectations. And even if they need time to think about it. So that's the first thing. What are your expectations? What are their expectations, rather? So the next piece is looking at, for you, to identify, what does support look like to you? If you're getting a lot of support from your manager, I want you to look at, what are 3 to 5 things that you would be receiving? And a really good exercise when I'm working with groups that I have managers do is that I have them look at 3 different areas. So number 1 would be, what is something that your manager is doing that you would like to see more of? Maybe they give you recognition, but you're like, I'd like to get a little bit more of that. Or they give you feedback, or they give you guidance. I'd like to get a little bit more of that. Okay. So the second thing is, what is something they're doing they can do less of? Could be maybe they micromanage, maybe they second guess, maybe they jump in too fast. Again, what is something they could do less of? And lastly, what is something that they're not doing, that you would like them to do? So, that's something to look at is what is something they're not doing this, and you can get this from maybe you've had prior managers that did certain things that you really liked. And the reason being is you really want to start looking at what sets you up for success. What are those things, those behaviors, those approaches that set you up for success? Being mindful, writing this down, taking an inventory of it, and then sharing that. Being able to share that, like, hey, as someone told me, I was working with a group recently, and we were kind of going over something like this. And I was like, yeah, so, what do you think about this approach? And this person said, well, yeah, this is like getting the cheat codes and how to be successful. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, definitely. So this is one way, but this is hard work to look at. What does support look like to you? Really looking at 3 to 5 examples of what support looks like to you. So the next thing to look at is, are you asking for feedback and growth opportunities as well? And the last episode of this podcast, I looked at having a growth mindset. And the last piece of a growth mindset is continually asking for feedback. So you can sharpen the saw, as Stephen Covey would say, and just always try to get better. And so asking for feedback from them, asking for growth opportunities, and um, just being able to be having good conversations, regular conversations about your career goals. Maybe you want to move up. You don't have to, but just looking at things like that and just being able to share what your career goals are and asking for growth opportunities. And growth opportunities may not be related to you moving up. It just could be something to stretch your skills. So, but asking for that. And another good point is asking for their perspective and opinion on things. Like, hey, I just want to run something by you. What are your thoughts about this? And people tell me, depending on how approachable your manager is, this may be very easy and it's already happening. But even still, that if you don't have this or this is not something that happens often, I would do that. Your next one-on-one meeting is to say, hey, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I was having this challenge recently on a team, and I'd like to get your thoughts. And so when you phrase it like that, you're not saying that you can't do something. You're just saying, hey, I want your thoughts. And some leaders really like being engaged that way. Like, oh, you want my opinion? Sure. Here's what my thoughts are. So now other pieces, because the one main thing that I'm going to get to in a little bit is coaching up. That's a big one. But before we get there, we just want to look at really just trying to tighten up the relationship that you have. Make sure you're meeting expectations. You're asking for their opinion. Other things are related to more the professional aspects of the relationship in terms of, are you following up? How are you communicating? And this is why you want to find out expectations, because your communication style may be very different than theirs. So for example, I love this one article I read a few years ago that discussed bullet point people versus full story people. And so this one company, people would wear different color badges to signify if they were a bullet point person or a full story person. And so that would just communicate. So let's say I wore a green badge. This would tell the person like, oh, okay, Tim wants a full story. So if you're going to give him details, you better get nuanced and tell him this is why this is happening, or what happened here, what did you do here? Because I'm going to have a lot of questions. But if someone wore a red badge, then they're like, oh, this person's a bullet point. All right. So in that case, I'd be like, all right, here's 3 things that happened real quick. I just want to keep you updated. Cool. I'm good with that. All right. If I have any questions, I'll ask, but I like it. And so find out, are they a full story? Are they a bullet point person? How do they like to be communicated with? And making sure. Now, Uh, you don't want to over communicate too. And so that's something sometimes that can annoy people. Am I over communicating? That hey, they maybe they don't want the little aspects of the project you're working on. They want more, you know, bigger level progress reports or just end results. Are we progressing towards getting this done in a timely manner? And if not, that's when I want you to involve me. So look at that way. So communication style, again, how are you delivering the information and how often? And so just be mindful of those things and check in, because otherwise you're just assuming. And we don't want to assume. You want to really identify with them, what are they looking for, and just being mindful of that. Doesn't mean that you're going to meet all of that, but you want to be mindful. This is what the drivers are. So, and making sure that you're following through on commitments. That's a hallmark of a great leader, regardless of what level you're at. But if you make a commitment, make sure that you're writing that down. You're committing that to memory, notes, whatever you need to do, and you're gonna make sure that you get that and that you deliver early if possible, but definitely on time. And then making sure you own outcomes. Like, hey, our team struggled here. Yeah, you know what? We could have done a better job with this, that, or that. I was looking at that. Really try to demonstrate being self-reflective, because think about yourself, that when you have an employee struggling with something or something has happened, you probably may already know what the issue is or why, but you want to hear it from them. And you don't want to hear them if people start not taking responsibility. That tends to be very frustrating for leaders. Like, just come out and say it. You dropped the ball. You didn't do this. You forgot about that. So again, make sure that you're owning it too. So now let me get to the last piece, and this is something that is hard for a lot of people, but this is coaching up. And coaching up involves giving your manager feedback. So let's start with something to really help set the foundation for that. So, blind spots. We all have blind spots. Every single human being on this planet has blind spots. And so, with that being said, your manager has blind spots too. Now, whether they want to do anything with it, that's another story. But they have blind spots. And so they may feel they're doing a good job in certain areas when in fact you see it differently. So, but again, if you don't communicate that, they have no way of knowing that. So everyone has blind spots. And so when you start communicating certain things with them, just have that in the back of your mind, and even share that. You can share like, hey, I heard it on this podcast, or I was reading about, blind spots. And maybe you start that conversation with, uh, I was trying to look at my blind spots. Are there any areas that maybe I'm just not seeing, that I'm missing? And asking them for feedback to kind of just open that door without trying to talk to them directly. So it's a very indirect approach. And so once you start having that conversation, maybe the next meeting or the meeting after, you circle back. Hey, remember I was talking about blind spots before? And so now, if you're going to coach up, you want to make sure it's worth it. If it's like a minor issue, it's just annoying what they do. In many cases, it's probably not worth coaching up to the person. But the example I like to give is, let's say I'm your manager, and whenever you come to me, I'm like, yeah, sure, listen, I can help you with that. Yeah, no problem. Listen, I'll let's schedule some time on Friday, or I'll be there for you, and I can help you with X, Y, or Z. And so let's say I don't follow through. I don't follow through, and this becomes a pattern where it's happened a few times. If it's a one-time thing, maybe you let it slide. But if it's a pattern, it's happened two or more times, that's starting to be a pattern. And so if you're left holding the bag, if you're not able to complete a project because you needed their guidance, their assistance in some way, then it's okay to say, hey, Tim, I want to talk to you about something. And remember, coaching up is really hard. It's hard to give your superior feedback, but just remember, everyone needs feedback. Everyone needs feedback. Whether it's the president of the United States, CEO of a company, everyone needs feedback. And one of the challenges that I found is that the higher people move up in organizations, the less feedback they tend to receive. And so this just perpetuates blind spots, but also perpetuates people feeling comfortable that, hey, this is where I'm at, it's what I do, and take it or leave it. And if they're really steeped in a modern leadership approach, and secure as a leader, saying, hey, I don't have all the answers. If there's something that doing or not doing, or you'd like to see more of, then come talk to me. And so I think it's really vital as someone who leads people, you put that out there. And you can't control what your manager does, but you want to make sure that you are receiving feedback. You want information coming your way, and you can do this through suggestions, recommendations, input. But again, so you want that. And so when it comes to coaching up, you want to give a lot of benefit of the doubt. That's an important thing, because otherwise people may remember, if they're not getting a lot of feedback, they may not be very receptive to what you have to say. So you'll be like, hey, Tim, I know you got a lot going on. We got this acquisition going on, this merger. I know you're managing multiple areas, but I do want to run something by you, something that's been a challenge for me recently. And then you get into it. Like, uh, again, this is a good point where you can write your notes down, create, 3 or 4 talking points, and just like one liners that can keep you on task. Because remember, if this person's a bullet point person, they're going to want you to get to what it is pretty quickly. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. So you don't want that. So you want to make sure you do the homework ahead of time. Identify what the challenge is, how it affects you, how it affects the team, the company as well. So you want to tie those 3 things in. So again, doing it from the standpoint of giving them the benefit of the doubt and just saying, hey, I really appreciate how you're really good with this, you're that. But, I've had this one challenge recently I need your help with. And so it's really hard for me to talk about. So just give me a minute. I'm trying to work through it. But, the last couple of times I've asked for help, you've readily agreed, which is awesome. You're very approachable, really like that about you. But the follow through sometimes is inconsistent. And if I'm coming to you, I really need your help. So I try to be as self-sufficient as I can, but there's times when I really do need your help. And so this happened, last week, in fact, on Tuesday, there's another time where this happened too, related to this project I was working on. So be specific, but just say, like, here, that when this happens, this delayed certain things, and we were able to get things done on time, but it moved it closer to not getting it done on time. So again, show impact, and so it can really resonate, not just that, hey, you need to follow up because that's what I need, versus this action, how it negatively impacted us and potentially could have impacted the client we're working with too. So that's a really key piece. And just, if it's possible, that when you do, if you just be mindful of that, that would be really helpful. And so you leave it at that. Now, if this continues afterwards, you know, you want to be mindful of, like, how much you really want to drive coaching up. But in many cases, coaching up can be very helpful in just illuminating that something needs to get addressed. And so you do that. Now, if it's something more severe, something where maybe they're making comments, then you need to involve your human resource team. But you always want to try to address these things first. But I get it. And you know what? I had a situation in my career once where I did coach up, and that person got a little prickly. They didn't appreciate it, and that was more of insecurities in their own leadership approach. What that contributed to that. So, but it won't stop me. It didn't stop me. I gave, a couple other times where I gave different managers coaching up. Just again, it's really more about communicating what my needs were. And, like, hey, because if you don't do that, they don't know. And some people don't care. And so that's more of a traditional leadership mindset where here are the expectations, just go do it, versus that people really are using more of a modern leadership approach, which hopefully you are. You should be asking for feedback. They should be asking for feedback, or at least receptive to when they do receive feedback. And so, again, looking at having a good supervisor, a good manager relationship encompasses several things. So, number one is finding out what their expectations are, asking them, and just maybe over the course of a few weeks, few months, just check. Hey, so make sure I got this. So this, that, that. Is there anything else? Just want to make sure I'm clear, so I can do the best job possible and make your job easier, right? So who doesn't want to hear that? And then the other piece is, what does support look like to you? What do you need from them? Really trying to get granular. Where, hey, this really helps me. When you do this, this is super helpful. So talk about that. Don't be afraid to talk about what your professional needs are. Asking for their perspective, asking for feedback, follow through, own outcomes. So if there's any challenges, to be able to own it. More than likely, they already have their own thoughts. You need to come out and be reflective and like, I was thinking about this. What are some things we could have done differently? What are some things I could have done differently? So that can definitely help the relationship. And lastly, with coaching up, again, you're giving a lot of benefit of the doubt. But if it rises to something that's a pattern that's negatively impacting you, your team, and the organization and clients, then you definitely want to talk about it and feel confident. And in doing so, create some bullet points. 3, 4 bullet points, write it down on a sticky, have it with you when you're meeting with them so you can talk about it. Talk about it with confidence and be able to stay on track. So if you want to learn more about this, definitely attend the next session of the Highly Effective Managers Program. Another one is starting on 10/16. The last one in July sold out. Already getting a lot of activity for this one. Whether you want to sign up or you want to sign up your team, if you got 20 or more, we'll do a private group just for you. Definitely would recommend that, because then I get to work with you to help improve your organization systems, processes as well. But any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. Tim at modernleadershippodcast.com or Tim at highlyeffectiveorganizations.org. Either one gives you a direct line to me, and definitely would love to start a conversation and get a book out to you, Highly Effective, Essential Handbook for Highly Effective Managers, third edition. So, but listen, you want a good relationship, start doing some of those things. And even if you think it's really good, it can be better. It can be better. And you deserve better. But make sure the things that you're looking for, you're also doing it with your team as well. You want to be congruent. Things that you're talking about, things you're looking for, you're also engaging in those same things. Modern Leadership Podcast, Tim Nolan. Have a great day.